I'd like to welcome you to the webinar about discovering ESTA Education CME. And it's a pleasure to introduce Phil Aird, who is the CEO of ESTA Education, and Greg Mudd, who's the course leader for the CME. So before we get going properly in this webinar, I'm just going to go to each of my panelists and ask them to give us a little 30-second insight into the kind of music making they do and also their role within ESTA Education. So let's start with Greg.
Hi, thanks for coming along today. So I'm the course leader for the CME, which is the Certificate for Music Educators. I'm also a professional musician and teacher and lecturer as well. I've got quite a diverse background. I've had some background teaching in schools and in colleges, and I've also, although a long time ago, also done some work in prison education as well. Currently, I've been the professor of bass guitar and jazz at the Royal Marine School of Music. Now the Orford School of Music, because now we teach the Army there as well, in Portsmouth for the last 10 years. And I'm also senior lecturer of developing the musician at Surrey University, which is based in Southampton.
Excellent. And Phil?
Thanks, Rob. Well, I'm a violinist. I've been a member of the Royal Ballet Symphonia, which is the orchestra for Birmingham Royal Ballet, for about 32 years now, which seems an awful long time. And I'm also CEO of ESTA, and I enjoy coaching and teaching. I run a number of courses in the summer, mainly chamber music courses, and I have been known to wield a baton occasionally. But,
like the way you say
in a non-threatening way.
Okay, so I should say to everybody who's joined us that you may have questions that Greg and Phil don't cover, although I'm pretty sure they'll get most of them. But if you do, then just pop them in the Q&A or in the chat box, and I'll make sure to monitor that, and we'll come to them at the end, or as we go along if they're pertinent to the way the discussion's going. But to start off with, what is the CME? Well, Greg said what it stands for. It's the Certificate for Music Educators, but perhaps Greg can start by just explaining a little bit more about the course and who it's aimed at.
Thanks, Rob. The course is aimed at anybody who's teaching music at any level to anybody. It's particularly aimed at people who might well have no formal qualifications in teaching music, but who have already started teaching some individuals, either on a one-to-one basis or in small groups or even in a classroom setting. So it's open to anybody wherever you are in the world. So you could be quite a early career teacher, or you could be a teacher who's taught for a long period of time but's actually got no formal qualifications, and maybe you want to develop your business or indeed branch out into other teaching environments. And this is what that course is particularly for, is to build skill sets, build your confidence, and also build your ability to sort of think about how you are teaching and the impact on that might have on the pupils that you currently teach.
Maybe Phil can answer this one a little bit about the course in terms of is it online, in person, a combination of both, and what makes it so special in that respect?
The course is all online, serviced all online, and it's over a period of 6 months. It's quite flexible in a way, which Greg will be able to elaborate on, but it's flexible in that it sits nicely alongside your day-to-day routines. Teachers have busy lives, and no 2 weeks are the same. And this course is able to sort of sit underneath that. Some people find that they'll chip away at it and do a little bit every day. Some people will leave it to the weekends because they're so busy in the week. You know, it's got that kind of flexibility within it, so you can be quite agile with how you approach it. Would you agree, Greg?
Absolutely. And the way I design the online content is we deliver them a little bit like today through a webinar where we look at some ideas around teaching. We look at some strategies that you could use to enhance your teaching in very much a webinar environment where it's an open environment, discussing problems perhaps that you've experienced, and also ideas to overcome those barriers. And alongside the formal webinar sessions, which tend to be anywhere from around an hour and a half to 2 hours long, we also every so often we open up to do some tutorials as well. So that's a little bit more one-to-one. So sort of 20-minute, half an hour tutorials as well. So the webinars I tend to arrange on the weekends, just because that tends to be when most people are able to attend. That said, at the beginning of the course, which starts every 6 months, the next one's starting in March, and then we have another one again starting in October, I ask everybody about their general working environment in terms of their working week, and then we tend to look at the general consensus about where the webinars should fit. The tutorials are infinitely more flexible because we can just do a diary match. The webinars, we have to go with the general consensus, and the good news is if you can't make one, we record them anyway. So if you can't make them, I'll send everybody a link round to the recordings. Any documents and any suggested readings I've given, I'll put in an online folder so you can access those. And that's how those sessions run. So very, very flexible right from the off.
I was going to ask you about the entry requirements for the course in terms of how qualified should a candidate be, and is there any option to kind of have a consultation with you or Phil to kind of talk about that if people are having worries about, oh, maybe this isn't right for me? Or
Absolutely. I think the big thing to say is we get quite a depth and breadth of people taking the CME course, and so if you've already got some qualifications in music, that's fine. They might not be centered around music teaching, and you'll find that some of that work you might already be able to count towards your portfolio anyway. So there might be some things that you've already done, some lesson plans perhaps that you've already done, some activities that you've already carried out, and that we actually might be able to take that, and you might already have done some work towards it. And then on the other hand, if you've got no formal qualifications at all, so long as you're teaching somebody, whether that's on a private basis, peripatetically, through a school, through a small classroom environment, so as long as you've got some teaching, then you're more than welcome to join the course. It's set up in such a way that you will, within the first couple of weeks, you will see that everybody reaches this sort of equilibrium state, and we all head off on our learning adventure together.
I tend to find that there's many different age groups joining this course, or is it young or is it older people? I mean, how does that work, that dynamic, that demographic rather?
Again, I really enjoy teaching people of all ages, and so not only does that not matter, whether you're an experienced, mature teacher or somebody fresh and just started your teaching journey, that's absolutely fine. Equally, it doesn't matter who you are teaching. It doesn't matter the age groups that you are teaching either. The course is set up in such a way, if you're teaching at primary school level, or you're teaching at secondary school level, or a college level, further education, the course is set up in such a way that you can write about that, and you can write about your students. It's not explicitly about any particular age group of students. You can write about the people that you are teaching.
Yeah, no, I've just always found it really interesting, the type of students we've had. You know, as Greg says, we've literally had rocket scientists who are very passionate about music on the weekends and teach on the weekends when they're not busy building rockets. And we've had, you know, community people, musicians. We've had peripatetic musicians that have been really successful and really experienced. I mean, teaching 20, 30 years, and they're just coming back into that sort of learning environment, refreshing their skills, I guess, as well. And what links them all together is a passion for music and a passion for teaching. That's the common denominator. And I think that's why the course works so well, because it caters for every eventuality, really, I think.
And Phil told me earlier, by the way, about there being a rocket scientist who went on this course, and it made me wonder whether we could do the same as musicians. I mean, that would be a fun way to spend 6 months, wouldn't it? Anyway, I'm not sure about that one.
If they'd let me, I'd give it a go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think they'll let me though.
I wanted to talk about the umbrella organization, if you like, of ESTA Education. ESTA Education offers a PG cert and an MA course as well. And I wondered whether there was whether the CME was a stepping stone to those qualifications, and if so, how that progression might take place.
So yes, is the answer. The CME does provide a stepping stone, particularly if you've got no formal qualifications in music teaching. This would provide an excellent stepping stone to take you towards either the PG cert or the masters. Absolutely. And some of the strategies which we talk about on our course will be repeated and then developed even further in the PG cert and in the masters as well. So yeah, there's direct continuity there. And what's nice about doing those through ESTA is that you get to know ESTA as the team that's behind ESTA, and you get to meet various people from behind the scenes. And as your career develops, we like to see you grow and develop alongside that.
Kind of gone in both directions, because we've had people, as you say, without any formal qualifications. So this is their first phase one, perhaps, of their professional development journey. But equally, we have a number of candidates now that are on the MA course that previously did the CME. They chose to do that because they didn't want to just jump in straight at an MA level. They wanted to refamiliarize themselves with research and referencing and writing, and that's kind of critical thought before they took that big leap up to sort of a master's level. And it's probably worth knowing that the PG Cert course, which can be in any instrument, including voice, is actually the first year of the masters. So you can do the PGC and stop, and then you have your postgraduate certificate, or you can continue immediately or take a break and come back to the second year to complete the masters. So it's a nice progression.
And of course, people may know ESTA as the European String Teachers Association, but just in case there's any confusion on that, of course, we have singing teachers, bass guitar, guitarists, harpists, anything you can think of. So there shouldn't be any element of confusion there. You can always find out more information at estaeducation.co.uk. It's a very nice bespoke site. In fact, it's so up to date that Phil was updating that just before we went on air today. What is the benefit of having a qualification in the current jobs climate?
It's a good question. Well, I think it's fair to say that the music industry is precarious. It's always been a challenging environment in which to work. And I think when you're applying for any kind of position, the more you can show the effort you put into your professional development, whether it's in a formal qualification or not, to be honest, people, employers, and parents for that matter, actually, are always keen to see that you're continuing your learning journey. So I think when I interview people for positions, I'm always keen to know what they've done in the last 4 or 5 years. How many courses have they attended? What kind of professional development? Has it been instrument specific? Has it been more generic? And it helps you build a picture. And having any of these qualifications shows a determination, a steely determination to complete the course and to complete a program of study. And I think that as well, adds to the character of the person and the strength of the application.
Yeah, I think I'd agree completely with you there, Phil. Over the years, I've not become, I guess, stagnant with my own development. And certainly, whenever I've learned something new through a course or certificate or program of study, I'm actually really excited to go and tell my students about that. And they then themselves see how that's affected you positively, and they actually become a more engaged learner through that process. So that sort of drip down of information is so vital, and certainly one of the really enjoyable parts about teaching music and learning music yourself. I think I say this to a lot of people that I teach, not just on the ESTA course, but beyond that, about that notion of there's no completion of music. It's not like a computer game where you have a completion certificate. You've managed to thwack away the baddie at the end. It's an ongoing cycle, and so if music is an ongoing cycle, then perhaps us as educators should also see our education as being an ongoing cycle as well. And I think that's really important. And certainly over the years, the way I teach has completely changed, not because of any one particular thing, but because of lots of different things. And part of that process has been doing more qualifications and progressing myself as an individual as well.
I like to joke with people that, you know, if you're fortunate enough to have to undergo an operation, do you want somebody who qualified in 1982 and has never done a day's sort of refresher course or taken any professional development, or do you want the person that's up to speed with the current skill set? You know,
yeah, that's a good analogy.
The analogy carries in so many different waters.
Absolutely.
I was speaking to Helen Sanderson last week, the guitarist and your colleague at ESTA Education, and she was telling me that she finds as a mentor that she learns as much from teaching from the students that she interacts with, you know, as they probably learn from her. She saw it very much as a two-way process. Is that something that you agree with?
Absolutely. I think every day I learn something new about the people that I teach, and then also how I teach them. And I think certainly as part of the CME course, we talk about becoming a reflective practitioner. And that's something I do at the end of each session, whoever I'm teaching, whether that's a very practical lesson or a theoretical lesson, or through ESTA, where we speak about how to teach and how to maybe correct behaviors and how to encourage creative learners, that we're really thinking at the back of our mind about what, not only about what we're saying and how we're saying it, but how that's been interpreted. And I think we've all sat and perhaps taught some people, and you thought, I've made that very, very clear. I thought I made it exceptionally clear. I went over it 3 or 4 times, and then the next week comes around and it's been evident that that person actually hasn't quite grasped that concept. And then you reframe it in a different way, and that can completely change their understanding of the subject. And then another student walks in the door half an hour later, and you go through the same process, and the way you taught the first way was how they wanted to digest that information. And so that's, I couldn't agree more that it really is a two-way thing, where we are teachers. We're often looked up to and admired by our pupils, which is fantastic, and we need to be seen to be able to motivate them, but also we can learn so much from them, and about how they learn, and about how we can adjust our strategies of teaching to help help them along on their journey.
And that's what makes the whole thing so exciting and so rewarding as teachers, because we're all different. Yeah,
absolutely. I've got a couple more questions, but I would like to remind our viewers that you can, of course, put any questions you like in the chat, and we'll come to those. But if you don't have any, but then you, in an hour's time, you think, I wish I'd asked such and such, then don't worry, you can email Phil or Greg via the website, or email me, and I'll pass any messages on. Can you remind me who validates this course?
So it's validated by Trinity, and so they will also externally mark the work that we send in, and so you know that that your work has been marked both internally and also externally by Trinity, who are based in London.
Right, we do have a question actually. we know that Greg is involved in the CME course as course leader, but who else is involved? Other mentors? And if so, how are they allocated?
So I run the course, and I also act as your mentor. What this course isn't doing, unlike the MA where it's instrument specific, this is more general approaches to your teaching. And so you'll have mentorship, and that will be through me in the tutorial sessions that you'll have. But also, like we were speaking about, that idea about learning off each other, you're learning alongside other learners on the course, and so we will also encourage some peer feedback as well to help you along your way.
Mentors are used primarily on the PG Cert and MA course, and they are instrument specific, and that is a much longer course. So you know, a longer relationship with your specialism.
Yeah, sure. So you can view that as, again, we talk about this progression. So get your CME done and then move on to that, because I'm sure you'll be hooked on the idea of ESTA education by then. How long does it take to complete the ESTA, the CME course?
So approximately 6 months. And I say approximately because it might be that you are able to slightly fast track if you've got some teaching experience, and that can go in towards your portfolio as well. So it might be that we can early submit your portfolio. And also, on the other hand, you might find something happens. You might suddenly have an influx of students, or some family situation that means you can't actually quite do it within the 6 months. We have flexibility there with Trinity as well, so you can enjoy the webinar content, you can have the tutorials, and you can do what you can with your portfolio with the flexibility that we can allow you to progress onwards after that. So for example, the course that's starting in March will finish in the summer, and it might be that you complete your portfolio and you submit it for marking, and it's all okay. It might be that you want to take a few extra weeks or a month or two at the end of that to actually go away and finish off anything in your portfolio as well. So there's flexibility at both ends there.
Okay, thank you. Another question's come in. What about watching other people's lessons, brackets, recorded? What opportunity is there to kind of sit in on other people's sessions online? Or I guess it's asking about that, the openness of that sharing of information.
I guess we talk a lot about how we teach and about our experiences of being teachers. As part of the course, you will be recording some of your lessons, normally 3, but there are exceptions to that as well, again depending on your prior teaching experience, and those lessons are to be shared with Trinity. But there's obviously, we have to tread very carefully with sharing of videos to external people, and so we have to tread very carefully there. But what we do is speak about those sessions, about what went well as part of your learning to become a reflective practitioner. We talk about the sessions. What did you do? What things could you take from that session? And then we share that within the webinars, and we talk about that in an open environment.
I'm going to bring Phil in because, as you know, I'm no Nicole Wilson at hosting these webinars, so I might have forgotten something very, very important, and he will definitely not have forgotten. So Phil, is there anything that we need to talk about?
I guess people would like to know how much the course costs.
Oh yes.
So we can say it's £800, and Greg will correct me, but I don't believe you need to purchase any materials, because that will be supplied. You apply through the website. We just take some details, and then we arrange a quick interview. It's a very relaxed interview. We just learn a little bit about what you're actually doing in the world of teaching, and that, provided that's all fine, you're ready to start.
It sounds like remarkably good value for a course like this. I haven't been told to say that.
Well,
So,
I've got to say, I must say that ESTA's a charity. We're non-profit making. So actually, all our courses are good value.
yeah.
I would say that anyway, but it also happens to be true.
We've had a note in the webinar chat from one of our guests who says, "Can you remind me what the deadline is for enrolling? I had plans to do the course starting in March, but now need to delay until October." So when would be the optimum time to get in touch and to sign up with a view to starting in October, 1st of October?
Well, just to reel back, we are able to take students now if you apply this week for March. But ideally, if you're looking at October, we would want to know by something like the middle of September at the latest, really.
Yeah, I mean, we should say it's hard to read from that text whether you had planned to start in March and you still would like to, or whether you think you're too late. You're not too late. If you want to start in March, you can do that. But if there's another reason why October is better for you, then of course we understand.
This is for Greg, I think. Are the three recordings of the same pupil to show development in teaching methods, or three different pupils?
That's something that we would talk about in the sessions. Typically, they are the same group of individuals, or if it's on a one-to-one basis, it tends to be the same. And we will go through the procedures about getting authorization from the student and their parents as part of that course. The idea behind the recordings is you can do a recording of a session or part thereof. Sometimes it's only suitable to do a part of a lesson, perhaps if it's a longer session. And then we will talk about that in our sessions, and then you'll get some formal feedback as well as verbal feedback from me, and then you'll do a reflective summary of that, and then thinking about that will help you then prepare for your next session. So, but to answer your question, it tends to be with the same pupil or group of students, because it shows continuity about how you may have changed things and the impact of those changes that you've made.
Head to estaeducation.co.uk for more info. And just to remind you all that those channels of communication are available. So email me, email Phil, email Greg, send a Facebook message, we'll pick it up and we can get back to you, and you can have a bespoke interview or consultation, no obligation. You can find out as much as you need to know about these courses. Everyone, have a great evening. Thanks for joining us.